And what I tell people is take advantage of it because it is very expensive to get a session outside. It's extremely expensive. So what we do is we take a look at the mental health impact on people coming in as refugees, new immigrants, and we evaluate them, you know. And so when we do this evaluation assessment, of course, people talk a lot about violence from back home, whatever back home is for you. I'm Nigerian, so I know we all have all our different countries. And a lot of people are fleeing violence. They are fleeing torture. They are fleeing, it could be violence as domestic violence. It could be violence as what is not allowed in your country, in your home country, and allowable here, right? And so we cannot see what the impact is. How has this impacted you? What are you going through? And of course, the major thing is trauma. The major thing is trauma. And so we take a look at that all around. And most importantly, you know, we always say that we don't jump into anxiety or depression or whatever. I start with trauma because the first thing is trauma. You know, we all go through different types of pain. But one thing I know about us Africans is it's like we're very good with pain. You know, there was this, I think there was an artwork that I saw, and this woman she was drowning. She was drowning, and she was saying, I'm fine, I'm okay, and she was drowning. And I found out with us that we are drowning, but we keep saying we're okay. You know, I've also found that we really don't want to come for counseling. You know, there was an experience I had a couple of years ago. A woman was referred to me, and she needed counseling, right? So at that time in that organization, they referred to us as counselors, not therapists. So, but under our signature, when we respond to clients, we have to put our designations and everything there. So she saw psychotherapy. She now emailed me, I'm not psycho. I don't have a problem. I don't need a therapist. And I'm like, it doesn't really matter, you know? So kind of how we see it as psycho. So I think that's a big barrier for us as well. Because it's not about psycho being that there's a mental thing that you're on the street. That's not the meaning. It just simply means that you're kind of going through some form of emotional imbalance like that, and you need help, right? And so that's what we do. Not like we're doing psycho-mental, okay? And so what we do after this evaluation process and everything, and we do for everyone, individuals, we do couples, we do children as well. And so at the end of the assessment, we also submit an application for counseling. So these are also free. Evaluation assessment is free. You also have counseling free. And I tell people when they come, you will not get counseling 10 sessions free anywhere afterwards. You would not. The highest you can get is 5, and they will not document it for you. So what we do, after the whole of that process, we give them the evaluation to support their hearing cases. Okay? And we do take a look at what's happening in the home country, the impact it has on you as an individual and why you're here, right? And so far so good, we have been able to do that successfully. And with the help of my wonderful guys here, you can see them, one is right there, okay, and there's Agustina right there as well. The other services that we provide therapy for children. We do couples counseling, individual counseling, premarital counseling, group programs, and we also have specialized programs. So I'm going to talk a bit about those ones rightly. So for the group programs that we have coping with your emotions, it's DBT skills, we have understanding and healing from narcissistic abuse. And this is a very funny word. A lot of us don't want to hear it because it's flying all over. Anyways, you're a narcissist, everybody it's flying. And overcoming childhood trauma. I found this a lot with a lot of our clients, also the refugees. There's a lot of childhood trauma. And we kind of really unpack where it's coming from. We unpack, you know, how it has impacted you. And the funniest thing is many people do not realize the impact of childhood trauma. Okay? We have seen people in their 80s. I've seen a couple of clients in their 80s that they've never dealt with childhood trauma and they have to deal with this in their 80s, right? And many people have gone through some form of abuse. Some have gone through some form of violence that they can't even talk about. And I also realize that what we don't talk about back home, we talk about it here, okay? And like a child who's gone through sexual abuse would say, I couldn't tell my mom. Maybe the person who did the evil was mostly their family members, 90%. And so you can't tell mom, you can't tell dad, you say don't disgrace us. And people hold on to this, and it has impacted them so hard. So I've seen that a lot even with our clients as well who are coming from Africa, and they are not able to talk about this back home, but now they're opening up now to children because it's impacting them. They still carry it. And I would call that an inner child, because the inner child in you is still crying for help the other way, right? And so we also do understanding and coping with depression as well. We do the impact of stress on our well-being. And this is huge because I realized that when refugees come here, the major thing they also deal with is stress, because they find it hard to find work. That's one. They find it hard to find community. Two, they find it hard to find even housing. Okay, and so all this coming together is extremely stressful for them, extremely stressful. And so we do that as well. And we have our program we call Purposeful Aging. We discover meaning. We have heartful parenting, co-parenting as well. So I'm going to bounce off. I'm going to keep going. These are specialized programs that we have. Because it's youth, there's one that we do have called Youth Personal Development. And what we do there is, because I'm also a life coach, so we coach people also on academics, what are your goals, your visions. We actually tell the youth to do a lot of their SMART goals, what do you look to, what do you want to do, who do you want to be. And we actually help them in terms of navigating, their journeys also. And most importantly, we see now that a lot of youth have a lot of negative behaviors as well. So we help them to manage those, and we give them strategies to cope and to work with. And so we do have raising leaders as well. So we have Goke especially is in charge of the youth, and so he kind of works with the youth to see how we can raise them to be focused. And so we go on. Good. So who are we? We, like I said, new immigrants, people who voluntarily moved to Canada, asylum seekers, individuals fleeing persecution, seeking legal protection in a new country, refugees, those who are granted protection due to life-threatening circumstances in their home country, and protected refugees. So the program covers everyone, and also even after you have gotten your welcome to Canada, you're still covered under this program until you get your PR. So up until this point, everything you have is free. So we say all services are free if you're covered under the Interim Federal Health Program. That's the IFHP. And so the first thing we actually require from you when you want the services, we want to have a look at your brown paper. We want to check if you're eligible, because if your name is not on the system, we really can't offer you the program. Okay, you have to pay out of pocket. But as long as your name is still in the system, you are covered. So we said terms and conditions apply, but just like I said earlier on, if you come and you say 2 days you want the report, we won't be able to give you a report for 2 days. But like I tell people, if you want an emergency service, you have to pay. Just like when we go and post parcels in, what do we call them, Canada Post, and we say we want express, we pay for express, right? Up and above the normal and the usual rate. So that's why I say we really don't do like those emergencies. So we can see even a couple of things I will put here. I'm going to go over these services here as well. Mental health challenges that we see that people face before coming in here. There is war. I'm sure we all know persecution, war, violence, natural disasters, economic hardship, physical and psychological scars before arriving in the new country. And I practically want to say that it is sad that, yes, we're here, but at the same time, it's sad that our home countries, we have to run away from our home countries for better life. It is unfortunate, and I don't know which African country has. I think Ghana. I think we had Ghana had a very good leader. I don't know which other country. No more Ghana. I said I think I had Ghana has a good president or leader. I don't know which other African country has. But I think most African countries were having issues with good leadership. And that's why 99% of us are here because of that. So, and again, when we come post-migration stress, cultural shock is a big one. Cultural shock is a big one. And we have to deal with switching cultures. But one thing we're trying to navigate as therapists now is to actually do training in cultural competence, because we have actually discovered that we still need to bring our culture into the therapy, into the therapeutic room whatsoever. Because most people will say, you know what, I want a therapist who understands my culture. So right now, we are able to do that. Okay, let's bounce back. If you want to see a Nigerian therapist we have, we also do have we have Jamaican, I think, Crystal. We have somebody from Thailand who speaks Mandarin. So we're trying to see that, you know, we have a couple of cultures so that any culture you just want to see, you are able to flow. Another one is unemployment, like I said, and there's a lot of discrimination still. I always say that, yes, Canada would say that we don't discriminate, but it's still there. It may be very salient, but it is still there. Because I remember I came in as an accountant, like I said, and I got this job as with an agency. And so the agent called me and they said, don't tell them your degrees. Don't tell them. So I got into this place, and I was the only black accountant there. And so they were supposed to train me. They didn't train me. You know what they did? They went and brought all their warehouse sheets that they had waited for somebody to upload for them on their system. So they actually put me to start uploading all those ones. And I was wondering, when are you going to train me? You employed me as an accountant, right? When am I going to get trained as an accountant? And one day the HR called me and said, what are your qualifications? And oh my goodness. And I started talking. 2 days after, they called the agent, she's overqualified, we don't need her here. So either we like it or not, it's still happening. Okay, and I know that 99% of us have experienced discrimination somehow, somewhere. And so housing instability is a big, big one. We do run a program called New Immigrants Connecting for Success, and we usually always bring somebody who talks about housing. And so we know a lot of our clients have also gotten a lot of information about housing as well, how they can access what is available. Because the greatest thing here is information, and you must have access to it. If you don't have information, you're just done. Because we have seen that a lot of people are very vulnerable. And because they are vulnerable, people just kind of take money for what they shouldn't have to pay for. And so find out, there's a lot of information out there for you. Ask people, talk to people, ask questions if you don't understand. And so there's also the language barrier. I don't know how many people have heard you have an accent. That's why you have an accent. Come on. Why wouldn't I have everybody, everybody, we all have accents, right? Whether English or whatever, we all have accents. And there was something that happened to me when I was in McMaster University, when I went back to school to do health, you know. And we were in class one day, and the I think teaching assistant was taking a particular course, and there was a question, and they said, why do Canada bring people here and they don't have jobs for them? And one white young girl just said right in front of everybody, they should be happy we brought them from their poverty-stricken countries.
that other lady went through the same thing, so why can't you get it right? So we don't say that to anyone because everybody has a process of healing. And your own process of healing will be different from somebody else's process of healing. So we journey with our clients. We truly, it's like for me, my career is also my calling. So it's beyond me just saying I want to make money. For people, it can be, I just want to make money. But for us, we know we go way beyond just making it a career. It's also a calling. All right? And so we moved to, and a lot of people also, our refugees say that relationships, a lot of them have left their families at home and they are very concerned for their well-being. So again, we go through, okay, how do you connect with your family? What can we do? How, what other ways can you connect if you don't see them? So we take them through this, and I earlier on talked about depression and anxiety. So there are a couple of, there's a particular one I want to actually go over. I'll find it here. Sorry, when you have your nails done. You want to it's hard to do the clip. All right, let's see. I think I'll get there. I'm looking for, okay, I think I made a little bit on this part and I know what this is. So this other one is called the adjustment disorder. And adjustment disorder is where we'll find everything. We talked about culture shock, how you adjusting, how you coping. Some will say this weather, how you doing. Some will say the transportation. No, back home, and I say back home, I mean every home for us. We have, even though we don't have access to many things, we still have access to some things, right? So when people say they are finding it hard to adjust, the weather is one thing that people are finding hard to adjust to. Weather, number one, the fact that, back home you have somebody who come and say hello to you. It's not like that here. Where I live, I think I've moved there now 3 years. I don't know my neighbors. I don't know anyone living on my right, or living on my left, or living on my front.
So it's pretty much very lonely. It's really lonely. I tell people, hold on to families very dearly because it's a really lonely environment here. Canada is, North America is pretty much an individualistic society compared to Africa where it's communal. So we have our clients going through that also as well. And so what we have done is we decided to start a support group for our clients so that they can have people to talk to, right? At least your own people to talk to, what you're going through, share experiences. So however one person went through one experience, other people can share how they went through theirs. Okay, yeah, right there. So I already talked about it. So connect with us. I just want to briefly talk about this before I do the connect with us. So apart from the asylum evaluation, so we do the first step when you come in, before your first hearing, we do the evaluations. But for some people that connected with us later, that didn't know about the evaluation assessment, they have been given a date to be taken out of the country. So we assess them also and look at the dangers they would face if they take them out of the country. So that is pre-removal risk. So normally we do describable fair hardship assessment also, how hard it will be if this person is taken back home, right? We'll analyze it, we'll assess everything, again, trauma, safety issue, again, lack of employment, again, lack of economic action, assess this under this. So under this humanitarian compassion assessment, we also, because after you have done H&C, there's PRA. H&C is, okay, after all said and done, how can we show compassion to this particular person? And honestly, usually, especially when you have children, this works really, really, it's a good ground because they're going to say, okay, children are used to this culture already. Where did they start from? You kind of really advocate for the children as well. And we've had, right now, people who didn't know they could do assessment before, 2 big families, they were told to leave, and we thank God now they've given them a stay until their power sets in. Okay, so I talked about violence against women, and that is it. Thank you for listening. Any question? Thank you. Any question? No question. Oh, do you have a question? Okay.
Do you have any community building initiatives going on at the moment? Like any support groups for newcomers to kind of get together and discuss what they're experiencing? Kind of something for them to.
WhatsApp group for now, but our office is pretty much big enough. We're planning to bring people in to come and talk about the experience. Actually, we have one of our staff. She's not here. She used to do the talk about the experiences. So that's the thing we're looking at as well. So people coming, they can bounce off each other's experiences to just jumpstart, right? Because honestly, it's a lonely journey. Yeah, it's extremely lonely, yeah. So we do have that. And hopefully we can start off interest in next month. But we do have a WhatsApp group that we're bouncing off, yeah. And you can reach out to him. Yeah.
Do you provide any services for newcomers that aren't necessarily new anymore to the country? Like, for example, somebody who's been here for maybe 5 years or 7 years, 10 years, but still they're feeling the impacts of when they first came. Yeah?
So majorly right now, yes, our major clientele is birth, yeah, but we do offer other services, individual counseling.
How old is the elderly group? What age? Like 55, okay, because she's in charge of the seniors programs. So we're also, yes, so we're building it as well. So she can join the seniors program if she wants. Okay.
I'm sorry. Just to add to what she said, I think one thing that the asylum seekers, the refugees, tend not to understand is thinking urgency, not being able to differentiate between what is urgent and what is important. So the reasons why the psychotherapist assessment and evaluation is important is just to back up your claim. So, and I used to tell people that before you get your work permit, do what is needed to be done. Don't keep what is urgent. Don't do what is urgent for what is important. Don't leave what is important for what is urgent. If you can differentiate between these two things, there's something called scale of preference in economics. So what are the things that are important and what are the things that are needed to be done urgently? So if you can differentiate between what should be done urgently and what is important. Because working, yes, if you would work, you would work. Is it not Canada? You would work, don't worry. But if you're working and you don't have a status, and you know, mentally it's going to mess your mental health. It would mess you up. But and which is important between your work and your status? Because when you have a good status, let me just put it that way, working, it's a secondary thing. So we should be able to differentiate between the primary thing and the secondary thing. So that's the urgent things and important things. So you see people striving to, I just need work permits, I want to work and all that, send money back home, it is good.
Don't let them know you're sending money back home.
So I want to send money back home, I want to live a good life and all that. It is good. But the important thing is to get a status. And the important thing is also, so the essence of this, the section, the evaluation and assessment, is to back up your claim. Now, as a refugee, as an asylum seeker, you said you flee your country for a reason. By sense, it should affect your mental health. Just think back, you would miss, no matter how bad where we are coming from, no matter how bad it is, you would miss one thing. Even if it is your friend, you would miss something. If my friend was here out. So definitely it should affect your mental health. And this is reasons why evaluation and assessment is important, not just necessary. It's very important. Because I used to say this story. Now let's assume now that, oh, okay, Mr. A flew his country for maybe persecution, for whatever reasons, and came to Canada and claimed asylum. Now, it is free under the IFHP. If you don't know the IFHP, it means the Interim Federal Health Program. Now it is free. Now let's now assume that in health section, maybe hospital, going to the hospital is free in Canada, and you're sick. You didn't go to the hospital. So if you've been asked that, why didn't you go to the hospital? What would be our reasons? I'm throwing this question now to the public. What would be, just think about the vital reasons. Okay, if you're sick, the health system is free, go and treat yourself, go meet the doctor and you'll be treated. So if you're now being asked that, why didn't you go to the hospital? What should be the person's reason? Does anybody have an answer? Thank you.
I didn't know that OHIP covers my condition. I didn't know that OHIP covers my condition. Okay.
No, I don't think that's a valid reason for you to say you didn't know that. You would know. Because if you're sick, definitely then, someone close to you would know that you're sick. And the person would have heard from somewhere that, okay, if they ask you to go to the hospital, even if you don't know that it's free, if you have gone to the hospital, and maybe you get treated. Okay, so if you go to the hospital, they'll tell you, oh, this thing is free, after treating you and all that, and you feel like, no, I thought I would actually pay for this. So now, I don't think it's a valid reason. So this is why I used to say that, since this thing is free, why don't you use it? Why don't you assess your mental health? So it is very important, not just necessary, not just urgent. I know we are going to work, you will make money, but the most important, don't leave the urgent things for the important things. Thank you.
Let me just add one thing. Thank you so much. I remember a couple of clients actually had to come back because they went for their hearing and the judge asked them for an assessment. Because what that means is that you just go, this is my story, I flee. The first thing they're asking you, you're saying you flee persecution and violence. That's trauma. How come you don't have an assessment? So that's how they do it here. We can get away with this in our home country, right? But here, we can't get away. They're going to ask you. And I've had clients come to say that assessment was the key. They would read it over and over and over and over again. It's extremely important. And it's free, like you said. Why don't we? I've had clients that we have booked sessions for, right? And you book sessions, you booked your time, and you're waiting for them, and you call them, I just got called for work now, I'm going. So there was one. I was waiting for him. So in March, I booked 4 hours. And the first 2 hours I booked, I think they just called me for another. I said, fine, I'm going to book you another. So I booked, and I was waiting. And I was waiting. And I called. I just got called to one. I said, okay, since March. I said, okay, no problem. You will, in my heart, I'm like, you will come back because you're going to do this. So he didn't know that I actually saved his number. So he came back. I'm looking at it, I said, I remember you. This is your name. This is I said, aren't you going to work again? Is work not important anymore? So just like he said, believe me, work is important. And we understand the value of work. But when you have your papers and your status changes, things change. Believe me. You can go to school, you can get better jobs. You know, you can do so many things with it. So I would always say, what is important, just have a scale of preference. And just do it. It doesn't, I think it takes a bit of about 2 months before we do the application, the assessment, the counseling, before we get the documents together. And it's only once a week, 50 minutes, and you are done. All right? Any other question?
Wow, thank you so much. Well, thank you very much. Wasn't that a powerful presentation? Did we all learn something? Amazing. So next up, I'd like to invite Hannah Chazikini back to the stage to give us a short musical interlude. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'll be playing Concerto in G major.
just want to make sure that we all are familiar with each other, because I know some of us just came, some of us were here in the morning, but I want to make sure that everyone is familiar with each other. So if you have someone on your table, if you don't know who they are, or even if you do know who they are, just say your name, make sure you introduce yourself, get to know each other, because this conference is about, we're learning about so many different topics, but we're also learning about each other and our experiences. So feel free to introduce yourself to your people on your table. I like to see that. I like to see the handshakes. That's great. And if you need to get up and do a quick stretch, rest your arms, that'll be great. Amazing. All right, amazing. So now as we move into our next speaker, I would love to welcome Delaney Hines. And Delaney Hines is a dedicated advocate for health equity, particularly in cardiovascular and sickle cell anemia health initiatives. Delaney leads the national implementation of Heart and Strokes Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Strategic Plan, and has over 13 years of experience in public health research and quality improvement. With degrees in science, public health, and business administration, he also serves on the board of the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario, where he continues his work in advancing equitable care for sickle cell disease. Please welcome Delaney Hines.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. First and foremost, Hannah, you are nice. I mean, I'm so, sure. I mean, and humble apologies, folks. I know I'm showing up a bit late. Reason being, we actually had a Learning for Life session, which is one of the programs we deliver at SCAGO this morning from 11 to 1, where we were spending some time with a patient advocate talking about living with sickle cell disease and what that means to live through a stroke event, for example. So had it not been for that, I would have been here from the early portions of the day, but all that to say, thank you for having me. And thank you so much. I didn't get your name. Simone, thank you so much for that warm introduction. Delaney Hines, as she very eloquently said, I'm a member of the board of directors at SCAGO. I also serve as the chair for the education committee. And in my full-time job, so SCAGO is my passion job, my evenings and weekends job. My full-time job, I spend time at Heart and Stroke, to Simone's point, delivering and leading the EDI work there. So today, with that being said, I feel like I'm amongst family. So please don't feel like this needs to be a formal presentation. If at any point in time, interrupt me if you have a question or if something I said wasn't spoken to, clearly articulated, just let me know and I can be sure to kind of review it. So jumping right in. Ooh, this is a pointer. There we go. I'll skip over the land acknowledgement. So for today, my hope is at the close of this session, we can all walk away with a firm understanding of what the SCAGO is, what we are and what we do. Spend some time giving you folks an introduction to the key elements of effective advocacy that the SCAGO has, I don't want to say coined, but more or less perfected and refined to be able to advance some of our legislative activities. And then last but not least, the path to systemic change. Many a time, injections of funds could be good to get something off the ground, but in order to really have that sustainable, persistent change, a lot of the time it needs to be built into legislation. So Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario. How many here are familiar with the SCAGO? I hope you and pray you spent some time talking to my guy Temple outside. He was here all day. Did folks drop by the table and learn some more about the SCAGO? See, I'm seeing not enough head nods. That's not what I did. Anyway, before you leave, please stop by, visit my man Temple over here. There's some brochures, some pamphlets, information at your disposal. And if that's not enough, you can always visit us at sicklecellanemia.ca, where you can find all the information about what the SCAGO is all about and some of the items that we kind of deliver. So on this image here, in our top right, you'll see right here is like a little postcard or a post note, what you want to call it, that it refers to one of the Learning for Life sessions we delivered a few months back. And in this session, we spoke to the first recipient of the CAS-JV trial, which is essentially a stem cell transplant that allowed this person, or it's more or less looked at injecting a gene therapy that will remove sickle cell disease from their actual body. So it's one of the first people to undergo that therapeutic treatment. You'll see Here's our World Sickle Cell Awareness Day, which I'll spend some more time talking to and how we advocate for that to be implemented into legislation. We have the quality standard that Ms. Landry was instrumental in helping to come to bear. So this speaks to essentially a best practice, making sure that anybody who arrives at an emergency department can have the care they deserve and be free of anxiety, free of fear, and free of stigma when they actually enter a health space. And then here we have our sickle cell disease education program for healthcare professionals. What's happening is alongside a number of partners and representatives across the health system, we developed an online e-module. So what it does is it helps raise the floor. So long story short, sometimes many of our patient advocates arrive at hospitals and people have never even heard of sickle cell disease, let alone know what the symptoms look like, know what it means to see somebody in crisis, and automatically, based on, as you know, if you don't arrive in the hospital with your Sunday's best, many a time we have to face the stigma of being the color that we are and face the stereotypes that people want to impose upon us. So they're expected to be drug seeking, or they might not be there for care, so they're treated completely inappropriately. So what we did is we developed this module to help ensure that folks not only have the most up-to-date information and are held to account, so that when they do see somebody in sickle cell crisis, they know exactly what to do. So what is the SCAGO? So the SCAGO is the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario. It was started on June 14, 2005, so next year will be our 20th anniversary, as a Seed of Life philanthropic organization, or SOLPO. It was in the memory of a brave young man, Sunday Afolabi, who happens to be the SOLPO co-founder's brother. SCAGO is a leading charitable patient organization providing evidence-based support to families with children, adolescents, and adults living with sickle cell disease across the 4 regions of the province. It supports and engages in research, health promotion, patient and care providers education, community awareness, and the development of best practice guidelines. So just some more fodder for you folks to chew on. The SCAGO, I won't go through the diatribe up front, but I'll spend a little time. Our vision is to optimize the lives of individuals and families living with sickle cell disease. This is a part of a broader vision for every Ontarian with sickle cell disease to have equal and equitable access to comprehensive patient-centered care, regardless of their place or residence in the province. Our mission is to reduce the incidence of new sickle cell disease births. And what I want to clarify here is we're not trying to tell people to stop having babies if they live with sickle cell disease. But the importance is we want to make sure that folks who do have little ones with sickle cell are aware of all the considerations they need to make when helping navigate that person's life journey. Living with sickle cell disease or sickle cell trait can have a number of considerations that are not known to the uncommon person or the lay person. So we want to make sure that folks who are born with sickle cell disease have a resource center they can go to. And that's one of the values at SCAGO. Patients and families come first at SCAGO, and as such, we employ the core values below. So S for support, C, we're committed to improving our services for our constituents, A, we're accountable, G, gain recognition and the provincial awareness of the sickle cell disease, and openness and transparency in our services. Here lie our goal areas. So research, we have a research committee which focuses on not only producing research and filling gaps in knowledge, but also making sure we can convene folks who are, once again, providing that evidence that is also necessary to make sure the best care is being delivered. Care and treatment, like I mentioned before, we have our provider modules that help inform people's care and treatment plans. Community services and support. So for example, many of our patient advocates who come up against a crisis, many of the time they have to take leaves off work. What does that mean? Loss of income. And what does that mean? Bills pile up. So one of the things that SCAGO does is we offer a community grant opportunity, which is a one-time fund. We only do what we can, but it's intended to help support and alleviate some of that financial burden folks come up against. Here we are talking about what we're here today, advocacy. So I won't get too much into that right now. Education and support, like I mentioned before, we provide our Learning for Life sessions, which is a bi-monthly program. We introduce folks to budding researchers, healthcare practitioners, people like yourselves who can share not only insight, but patient stories and help inform people about things they may not have known. And last but not least, advancement through collaboration. So we work a lot with healthcare systems, healthcare provincial bodies, and other nonprofits and patient organizations like ourselves
to make sure that we're all collaboratively working to make lives better for those living with these conditions. Okay, that's the gist of the SCAGO. The pop quiz is going to be after the session, so I hope for all of you who weren't, if you weren't listening, I'm going to tell your mom that you didn't do so well on the quiz, but we'll get there later. So what is advocacy, right? That's what we're here to talk about. We're going to spend some time talking about what it means to advocate amongst elected officials, and then spend some time talking about what it means to advocate for yourself in a healthcare system. So advocacy, the definition reads, is an activity by which an individual or a group which aims to influence decisions within a political, economic, and social system. We can all affect change, great and small. And I want to stop right here. A lot of us think you need to have millions, thousands of people to affect change. If the SCAGO can be one thing I want folks to walk away with for today, is the SCAGO has about maybe 5 permanent employees, and not even permanent employees, 5 employees, period. And SCAGO alone, with the fierce, strong leadership of Mrs. Lannery, has gotten the institution of Sickle Cell Awareness Day, Global Inherited Blood Disorders Awareness Day, the recognition of a healthcare practice guideline. There's been so much change done by a small but mighty team. All it takes is persistence, some sweat, some blood and some tears, but with the commitment and with the strength and the fortuitousness of, having a blessing on your side, things can happen and be changed. Sorry, folks. So here, I want to just focus all your attention on the 3 key ingredients of ensuring you can bring about that effective advocacy and bringing about some lasting change. So at the top, good case. What are your facts and arguments? When you're meeting with an elected official, as you can imagine, they are responsible for a whole constituency, sometimes made up of millions, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people. Everybody has their needs, everybody has their wants. So when you come to an elected official with a desire, you have to make it clear and concise. It's not good to have a bloated kind of request that doesn't really pinpoint exactly what you need, so keep it very specific. That way, it's much more difficult for them to deny you. Next, well-presented text. So like I mentioned, it needs to be clearly messaged, clearly articulated, and well-formulated. So I mentioned before, Ms. Lannery was instrumental in having the Sickle Cell Awareness Day recognized across the province. Pretty straightforward ask. We want to make sure on June 18th, we have folks who recognize that sickle cell is a condition that is still highly relevant and evident in the province. Very specific, very clear, well articulated. We know that over 1,500 people in the province live with the disease. We know over 150,000 people have the trait. We know with immigration, interrelational marriages and relationships, there's a number of people who will likely be born with this disease. The more awareness we have, the better we can actually begin to foreshadow impending healthcare burden, provide folks with that information so that when they do come up against a crisis, it's not foreign to them. The more we can protect against adverse outcomes. Clear message. And last but not least, timely case. There's no point in us coming to Doug Ford and saying, listen, let's give Kawhi Leonard the key to the city. It's too late, he's gone, right? You want to have something that's timely, that makes sense, that's responsible and responsive to the issues at hand today. There's no point in us talking about, the war in Iraq today. That was decades ago. You want to focus on things that are actually pervasive, that are impacting society as we speak. What you're asking for, very, very key. You have to know your priorities, the context, and I can't double down on it more, your audience. You have to understand who it is you're speaking with. Many times you end up in the office of an elected official, and for example, you'll be speaking to somebody who's a minister of transportation. Now, you're speaking to somebody whose mandate is to make sure the roads are clear and folks can get access to their licenses. Now, what kind of influence would he have on sickle cell disease? Right? So the point of the matter is, make sure you know who you're speaking to and about what. Somebody like that, you wouldn't say, oh, here are the statistics about the burden of illness, or here are the healthcare cost burden that happens when somebody ends up in crisis. That's out of his purview. But what you could ask for is an endorsement, because what we can tell him is that, listen, the city falters when people can't go to work. And if people can't go to work, there's no need for roads. So we want to make sure that the individuals who are trying to navigate the city can make it their work. Let's make sure the Minister of Health understands that message. Will you endorse that recommendation? So make sure you know your audience. Do not take it rote message to everybody and expect them all to appreciate it the same way. Who's your audience? So recognize your audience is a critical part of effective advocacy. As I mentioned, seek to understand their role, their impact, and how they can help or affect the situation, like I just mentioned. Who in the organization is best positioned to affect change or champion your issues? Who is most credible to speak to and about with? And remember, frustration is understandable, but long-term relationships matter. So if you come up against a roadblock, do not take it personally. There's going to always be people who are naysayers, dissenters, individuals who don't think what you're saying is as serious or problematic as you believe it to be. But don't worry, sometimes you have to plant a seed and nurture it to let it grow and come back to it later. Build a team. So I can't tell you enough. I myself don't live with sickle cell disease, but my strengths don't lie in the standpoint of understanding the lived experience. So I know that's a weakness of mine. So if I'm going to go and speak to a health minister, I want to bring somebody who can speak intimately to what it means to live with the condition. Or if we're talking about something in another political sphere, make sure you have people on your team who understand the issue intimately. There's no way you can kind of duplicate a lived experience unless you went through it yourself. Nobody here could tell me, no man here could tell me they know what childbirth involves, right? If I asked you, sir, what was it like giving birth to your firstborn? You couldn't tell me nothing. You could, surmise what it was, but you wouldn't have a good idea. If you want to talk about childbirth, bring your wife, bring your mom, bring your sister, bring people who are intimately connected. They could tell you what it felt like to have the piercing needle in their spine right before they got the epidural, or what it means to hold their baby in their arms the first time. You can't do that. So make sure you have people who understand what it is you're trying to advocate for. Nicely, third-party experts. If you don't have people who have the lived experience, bring some experts. They can help flesh the gap. And last but not least, trusted colleagues or supervisors. Individuals who've been in the game for quite some time, have the ability to kind of give you some of the ins and outs, let you know what worked in the past, what failed in the past, what will work now, and what will fail now. So this is just more about the actual tactics. So the things you do day to day or the things you do during the advocacy. First and foremost, stay focused. Don't meander. As you can see here, I'm giving a couple anecdotes, but I'm on the topic of advocacy. If you're there for a particular issue, if it's sickle cell awareness, if it's thalassemia, stay focused on those conditions. Many a time, these elected officials have a variety of things on their docket. They don't need to be confused in these conversations, so keep it clear. Be polite and respectful. Okay, we've all come up against a story of an adverse situation at a hospital, or we heard about a bad experience from somebody else. This is not the time to bring that up. Because what happens is if there's emotional connections, you might lose your train of thought, and you spend up more time describing a story and less time articulating your argument. So stay focused. Provide practical and achievable recommendations for action. Very recently, just this past March, we went to Queen's Park. We asked for something very, very simple. We asked for the Minister of Health to include sickle cell trait on the newborn screening report. Now granted, they already have the newborn screening report. It checks for all bloodborne disorders. They already test for sickle cell trait. The thing is, they don't include the results on the report. Reason being, sickle cell trait is not the disease. But people who don't know that might see sickle cell trait and think they have the disease. It might breed hysteria, it might breed fear. So the health minister said, we're gonna keep it off because we don't wanna have people getting hysterical for no reason. But what that means is there are 1 million people walking across Ontario who have no idea they carry the trait for a disease. Now, in an ideal world, all our African brothers and sisters will marry African brothers and sisters. All our Jamaican brothers and sisters will marry Jamaican brothers and sisters. And then what happens is we have a huge increase of disease and burden of illness, all because they didn't know they had the trait. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't go and intermix with folks who carry the trait, but just be aware. That's all we say. Sickle cell awareness group. Just be aware of what that means. So do your homework, take notes, Always take the initiative to continue the discussion. Many a time when you leave an elected official's office, you don't get the answer you're looking for. They don't commit. They don't tell you, yes, we'll go and endorse your message. They kind of say thank you and send you on your way. But you have their email. You have their office administration's contact. Follow up. Keep the pressure on them. Make sure you're making sure they are keeping aware of the condition you brought forward to their attention. And reward positive action. Everybody loves to have smoke blown up their ass. If you can go and post their picture on social media or go and share that they endorse something, politicians love that. Anytime a constituent can say, the politician did something in our favor, they use that and they add it to their portfolio. So when they go for re-election, they have things to speak to. So materials, clearly communicate your asks, be concise and practical, ensure the materials are really easily accessible, and provide references and contacts. So it goes back to my point. If you're articulating a message to elected officials, just be sure that what you're sharing is clear, concise, and simple. So this talks a bit more about the earlier example I mentioned about the Sickle Cell Awareness Day in Ontario, building the case. First, Escago was interested in instituting a Sickle Cell Awareness Day in Ontario to build greater awareness. We identified a private member, Bill, with a PC party caucus champion. So that was the strategy we decided to take. We're gonna find a private party member, so a PC MPP, somebody who we think is looking for a mission to champion, an initiative to tackle, because like I said, they're all interested in being able to put a win on their belt. We then went and developed a compelling and easy to understand briefing. And then from that point on, we want to understand, okay, we have the strategy, we have the actual tool. Now it's important we understand, well, when is the Ontario legislature in session? When can we actually bring this bill forward? Who and when can a private member's bill be introduced? So it's not as straightforward as we'd like it to be. When these elected officials convene or they quorum, there's different agenda items. So you might have an agenda of your own, but if it's misaligned with the agenda of the elected officials, you might run yourself ragged. So make sure you're timing and strategic about how you introduce things. What are the steps required for it to pass? So a lot of these bills require consensus. So you need to have, if it's 60 people in the room, you need 31 to go and say yay or nay. Otherwise, it will just fall flat and all your efforts for naught. So make sure you understand whether or not you can achieve consensus or achieve that winning vote you need. And pull delegates together to meet with parliamentarians. Back to my point, it's really great to have conventions like this where we all convene and say on day 22, we're gonna go to Queen's Park, we're gonna meet with elected officials, and we're all gonna sing from the same hymn book that we want this change to happen. Sorry for I don't know why that happened. Once again, we built relationships with key political advisors. We met with MPP Andrea Kanjan, MPP Rudy Cazzetto. We were nonpartisan, so we could care less if you're a conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican. It doesn't matter. So long as you're interested in pushing our agenda forward, you are a friend to us. And we made sure to find allies. The Thalassemia Foundation of Canada is also looking forward to making sure bloodborne disorders are recognized. So a win for us is a win for them. Because injustice anywhere is an injustice to everyone, everywhere. Long story short, the bill was jointly introduced, Bill 2255, Sickle Cell Awareness Day and Thalassemia Awareness Day Act on March 1st. A few private member bills were passed. This one was passed on an expedited path. It was signed into law on June 3rd, and champions were eager to build on the success. So like I said before, not only were we able to be happy that we got this bill passed, but now every time we go to Queen's Park, we bring back to their attention that we've done this before. We've gotten your endorsement before. And they always say, if you can ask somebody for a nickel, next time you can ask them for a muckle, because they've already given to you one time. So why would you stop asking? Keep on going back until you get what you need. Now, I want to make sure I spent a bit of time talking about what it means to advocate for yourself in the hospital system itself. And I want to be really clear. You attract way more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. So a lot of the time what happens is we end up at the actual hospital, we're in crisis, we're a bit perturbed, we haven't received the treatment we deserve, we're mad. So we begin to displace that aggression on the healthcare provider in front of us. These people in this moment in time are your only champions. So it's very important that you recognize even if they're not giving you the care you deserve, if they become your enemy or if they are no longer thinking in your best interest, it will not benefit your position. If you at least can check your emotions and keep your goal in mind, being I want to get home now, I want to get home healthy, I want to get home better than I came in, that should be at the forefront of any kind of interaction you have with a healthcare practitioner. So establish common ground. Every healthcare practitioner, regardless if they're thoughtful or not, they want to make sure you're actually leaving here in better health than you came in. So try your best to establish that common goal. That way you're working together. Frame the conversation based on the fact that they want to offer great care. Many a time you might be talking to a practitioner, they may be aloof, they may be distracted, they may have been working on the ED for 18 hours, who knows, they're on their feet all day, they may be a bit terse. But the bottom line is, assume that they want to offer you great care. They're more inclined to want to interact with you a certain way and treat you a certain way if you assume they're there to do good. Opportunities for advocacy are much greater when you're not a patient. So for example, the SCAGO does not try and advocate for its patients when they're at the emergency room. We try and advocate for care before they arrive at the emergency room and after they leave. So if we hear about untoward experiences, we hear about folks who feel like they've been mistreated, we make sure that the next person who crosses that threshold has a better experience. Also, we make sure that if these experiences do happen, we contact their actual ED departments, we speak to hospital leadership, and we inform them of the mistreatment or wrongdoing that our patient advocates have reported. So it's always easier to have folks listen, open their ears after a crisis. During an event, the main focus is ensuring you come home healthy and strong. Connect with your emergency department before an emergency. So many of our sickle cell patients, if you're a pediatric, you have parents who know your condition inside out. For our parents out there who are providing care to our sickle cell little ones, make sure you contact the local emergency department in advance. That way they can be informed of the sickle cell quality standard, they can be informed about the different care regimens, the best operating procedures. That way, if you ever do arrive in crisis, you can have the peace of mind that you've done your preparatory work. For our adults, same thing goes for you. If you're living with sickle cell disease, make sure you contact your emergency department in advance. Do they know they have someone in their region or local area living with the disease? Do they have, or have they ever come in contact with someone with sickle cell disease? These are the things you can do to make sure that you're protected when you arrive. And things like, caring and keeping top of mind what's worked well, what hasn't worked well for you in the past, what's helped before if you're in pain crisis, what kind of therapies, what kind of drugs, what kind of cocktails can they provide for you to reduce your pain. And if there's time and you're feeling up to it, ask them to delay a full assessment until after they've given you that quick remedy to alleviate the pain you're enduring in a moment's time. So I didn't want to belabor the point too much, but in the event you're still interested in advocating for causes like sickle cell disease, join patient advocacy groups like the SCAGO, or join patient representative groups at the hospital. These are the prime places to have your voices heard, inform change, and make sure that the actual conditions and treatment people receive will be better and much more promising than what you may have encountered. And I leave you here with All We Want is Fair Treatment. This is one of our patient advocates who spent many untimely events in the actual hospital who we do this work for. I implore all of you at some point in time, if you have the time, please do visit our website to hear more about our patient stories and learn more about the champions that we do our best to support. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delaney. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much. This is just a comment. Do you believe that sickle cells is actually a black-brown disease? Secondly, when you go to clinics or hospital, you see a lot of information about other diseases like heart disease, but never anything about sickle cells. Why is that? And lastly, in the spirit of publicity or information, how can we educate the young ones who are starting to date maybe about the importance of family history?
No, those are some amazing questions. So To your first question, it is a common misconception that sickle cell disease only impacts Black peoples. Like, truth be told, sickle cell disease is a badge of honor. Sickle cell was essentially an evolution of the fact from folks who were trying to avoid malaria, right? Sickle cell was used to prevent the spread of malaria in sub-Saharan Africa. So in essence, it was a survival tactic. Our blood was trying its best to keep us around. Now, of course, it came with its other unintended consequences, but sickle cell disease is actually present in the Middle East, in Europe, in Italy, in North America. It is not a Black-born disease. So that's the first question and first answer. 2, cystic fibrosis, which is another condition that is a medical minority. About 1,500 people have it in Ontario. It's very, don't get me wrong, I'm not underestimating the impact of it, but to your point, a lot more people are aware of cystic fibrosis. And the reason why, you probably already know. It doesn't impact many Black people. It predominantly impacts white people. And the people who occupy the positions to do the research, who occupy the positions of leadership at these organizations, they champion these things, and they go and collect philanthropy to make sure they're much more known. So hence why it's important for us to act collectively, to have our voices heard, and bring attention to conditions like sickle cell disease, because to your point, it is just as life-changing as cystic fibrosis and warrants the same level of recognition. And to your third question, it's making sure we have the Afro-Canada Foundation, these kind of events where our youth, our future generations can get much more impressionable conversations on them to recognize that you're right. Family history is not taboo. We need to ensure that not only our youth, but our parents do not shy away from conversations about this. I know when we talk about morbidity stuff or, things that relate to end of life, it gets closed off and we kind of shutter it away until it ends up coming up against us. But it's very important that we take it upon ourselves to be proactive, to understand these things, because too often are we at the precipice now where we're trying to tend to our loved one and we have no idea what they're going through because we've never spoken to them about their family history or the different conditions other folks have lived with. And therein lies the challenge we're trying to bring with SCAGO. We want to make sure that people who live with sickle cell trait or those who have the disease are wearing it like a badge of honor, ensuring that other people know it exists. And that way you can be much more informed in the event you come up against having a child with it, etc., and building in that change of behavior. Thank you for the question.
Amazing. Are there any more questions for Delaney? Yes?
Thank you so much for coming. Okay, I have a question. I hear all the time like people, any patients with sickle cell, they have life expectancy, however much you try, by the end of 25, that's their end of life. They cannot pass that and then go for. Can you elaborate more about that? How long they can live and how long they can also be for this treatment. And we understand it's not curable, but I just want to know. Thank you so much.
Perfect. So I should have started off the conversation with this, but many of us know, what's the one liquid flowing through all of our bodies right now? Blood. Blood. Thank you. And where does blood start and stop in our bodies? Everywhere, right? From the tip of our head to the tip of our toe. So now, when you're living with a sickled blood cell, what ends up happening is it's damaging your internal organs rapidly. So unfortunately, what sickle cell disease does, in layman's terms, is it speeds up your aging, so to speak. So typically what happens when you reach advanced age, your organs begin to, fail. We all know about what end of life means. What sickle cell disease does is it kind of speeds that process up. So at one point in time, before the advent of these new therapies, it would reduce your life expectancy significantly. But in this day and age, there are so many new therapies. There actually are cures now, to some extent. There's stem cell therapies. There are different interventions that you can actually take advantage of to remove that kind of untimely outcome from your life circumstance. Now, granted, they're not all accessible. So Cas-JV, like I mentioned, that gene therapy is not, it hasn't been approved yet in Canada. It's not the cheapest of things to administer. There are blood transfusions that you can do now as well to increase your life expectancy. I know many people living up into their 70s with sickle cell disease now. So it's no longer the outcome you mentioned before. But I don't want to be naive. The quality of life is still different. You're still living with a chronic illness. And what that means is you have to navigate certain things that other folks might not have to. Osteoporosis, stroke. There are different conditions you need to be hyper aware of, but that does not mean it's life-ending or life-threatening.
Any more questions? I just want to speak to the fact, just you stating in general that we should be approaching these people in power with these issues. It's so important. As somebody who's worked for a cabinet minister and a federal member of parliament, one of the biggest misconceptions that I see is that a lot of people think that it's hard to reach these people. It's hard to reach your representatives. It's not. It's your right, actually. They work for you. They're getting paid to work for you, you know? So you need to approach them with your concerns, with these issues. It's important that they hear that, because if they don't hear it from you, they're not going to know things like this exist, and they're not going to know that there are people that are actively fighting for these issues. So thank you so much for bringing that point up, and thank you for your presentation. Alrighty. Everybody enjoy that presentation? Maybe y'all learned something? I hope we've all learned how to advocate effectively for ourselves and for the issues that we care about. So that brings this conference to a close. Now I would like to invite Brenda, who is the chair of this convention, to give us a few closing remarks. And I'd like to thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for coming, attending, and lending a listening ear. It's okay. Thank you. Wow. Thank you all so much for being a part of our first annual youth convention. I want to thank all of you for being a part of this. So, first and foremost, I want to thank the volunteers. Thank you so much for registering and volunteering and helping out, because without you guys, this wouldn't have been possible. Next, I want to thank all the speakers that came and actually contributed and shared their knowledge with us. It was really, really quite an impactful day. I know some people showed up late. Next year you won't do that, right? Just to reiterate, some of you guys that missed some of the earlier speakers, we had Hannah Chazike, who spoke about the importance of introducing leadership to your youth at a very young age. Don't wait until your children are 18 or 19 to talk about leadership, right? Take advantage of all the programs that are available to you. Introduce leadership to your child while they're 6, 12. Why not, right? Because they're the future. So why don't we empower our children to be the future from a very young age, so that way they learn how to advocate and speak for themselves, right? And from her speech, we learned that it's never too early to introduce that, right? She spoke more from a standpoint of the Air Cadet program or the Cadet program. They do have different branches. And so all you parents and everybody online, definitely look out into what leadership programs can I plug my child into? What leadership program can you plug yourself into? Because it's never too late to become a leader, right? Okay. Whew. And then of course we had Cyril, who gave a powerful presentation about self-reinvention, and it was quite powerful. The importance of knowing a lot of us came here, well, a lot of us immigrated to Canada, right? And it's not all roses, as a bed of roses, as Cyril mentioned, right? When you come here, you have to come with a mindset that I need to reinvent myself. I might have been a doctor, a nurse, an accountant back home in the country that I come from, but sadly the credentials here might not match up to the same credentials that they're accounting for. So come with an open mind and be ready to reinvent yourself. And that might not mean having to change your career, but reinventing yourself. For example, I could say for myself, my name is Brenda. I started off my career as a nurse. I'm a nurse. I'm licensed.
but I'm also licensed. I'm a licensed financial educator. So if you want to sit down and talk about your segregated funds, your mutual funds, I could sit down and talk with you, right? I've been a member of the Canadian Armed Forces through the CIC program. So I am a member. I have my service number. So there's a lot of things you could do. And of course, and another thing, I'm currently taking my MBA, so I'm approaching to be an entrepreneur as well. So there's a lot to do. That doesn't necessarily mean only going through the education stream. I want you guys to take advantage of all the YouTube. I see a lot of you guys on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. I want you guys to take control of the algorithm that's controlling your Facebook feeds, okay? Start following people that are actually impactful for you, right? Start following leaders within your community. Start following people that talk about finances, that talk about how do you change yourself, how do you build more skills for yourself. Because then when Facebook pulls you, or Twitter pulls you, or TikTok pulls you into that loop of scrolling, you actually be unintentionally educating yourself without knowing that you're educating yourself, right? Go on YouTube. There's a lot of education that you could get on YouTube nowadays. There's a lot of people talking about finances, talking about self-improvement. Right? Let's start doing that for our youth today, right? Stop letting these platforms make money off of you for advertising, but rather start using them to empower yourself, right? And then, of course, we had Charlene Grant, who also did a powerful presentation. And I want to say great things to her. She really gave a great speech on how to advocate for ourselves and our children within the education system. And education does not only end from elementary school. She talked about how racial discrimination goes all the way to university. I've known people who get failed by 0.2% of a mark, and we all knew that that was more intentional than you would have expected, right? So let's, as parents and youth, let's be involved in the education system and change it so the education system starts serving us rather than just taking advantage of us. And then I wanted to thank Kuda, who did a powerful presentation on finances. She did a really great job. As we all know, like it or not, money does make the world go around, like it or not. And it's better we get educated on finances starting today, starting now, rather than later on when you're in debt and you're in regret and you don't know how to solve it. And even if you're already in debt, there's always solutions. It's just a matter of reaching out to the resources that are available to you, reaching out and asking for help so you could get out of debt, or else it'll just be an ongoing cycle. And then I want to thank Bola. Thank you so much for coming and presenting to us. A lot of our demographic, we expected today was going to be a lot of immigrants today, and we come from a culture that doesn't really put an emphasis on mental health. We really stigmatize mental health. And I really wanted our participants to kind of open up their minds and get out of that stigma of mental health. Because some of us are, I don't want to use the word suffering. I would say some of us need to take advantage of all the resources available to us to engage and empower our ability to maintain a better mental state of health, right? So please take advantage of the free resources. It's free. Back home, I don't even think we have such services for free, right? Looking for a counselor for free, where? Right here. That's where with Bola. She could do that for you. So please take advantage, reach out to her. She'll get you everything that you need and get you all set up. And Delaney, thank you so much for coming out and sharing the information on how to advocate for ourselves in the education. In the healthcare system, because a lot of us, whether we like it or not, whether you're healthy, you will at one point have to interact with the healthcare system here, whether it's here or back home, wherever it is that you're watching us from or coming from. Knowing how to advocate for your health is a really important thing, because nobody knows about your health better than you. Nobody is living in your body but you. So it's really important for you to take full control and charge of your healthcare. So thank you so much for giving them the nuggets of how to advocate for themselves in the healthcare system. And knowledge is power, right? And using that knowledge is even more powerful. So I just wanted to thank you guys so much for coming, and for all the delegates that weren't able to make it because of the visa processing. We have acknowledged that that is an issue that we want to rectify. So right now we're looking at working with a registered CIC consultant who is basically a licensed immigration consultant in Canada, who will actually present a webinar to you guys. We'll let you guys know on when the marketing is released and the date is confirmed of when you guys could register for that webinar. So that way you guys could get it directly from the source here on what are the documents you need to come to Canada. How can you set up a strong application so your application doesn't get denied? Because we recognize that some people have been using agents in their country that are not as honest or reputable. So we want you guys to get it straight from the source so you could increase your chances of getting your visas approved through. So look forward to our social medias and all our marketing platforms for when we will release that date for that webinar. And thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the delegates that came and showed up and took advantage of this program. This is the first one, and we're not done yet. We do have another one coming up next year. We'll have the same date, October 26th or 25th, I guess. We'll see. And the theme of next year's convention is how youth can actually take advantage of AI. So that is the topic and the theme for our next year's convention. So keep an eye out for that. We'll let you guys know when we start marketing for that. And I believe that is going to be a really, really powerful convention as we keep growing. So thank you guys so much for coming out. For the delegates that need certificates, there are certificates ready at the back. So if you could just orderly just sign up back there. I believe they're prepping your certificates, and you could just go at the back and get your certificates. Other than that, parking. For parking is free, so if you did park, please go to the back entrance over there. There should be an individual who will give them your ticket, and they'll give you a new one so you could exit. That's about it. I just want to say thank you so much to Stand Up Girl. You did a great, amazing job, didn't you not? Our master of ceremony did a really, really good job. Youth leading youth, right? Am I right? Great, great, great job. You did an amazing job. Thank you so much, Simona. Thank you for your time. She came all the way down from Ottawa to be a part of this. So can we give her another applause? And thank you to Simona's mom for letting us borrow your child today. So that is about it for me. Thank you guys so much for coming out. You could stay on network and pick up your certificates at the end. Whew, got it all out.
Please have White on the set. It's Ronnie on the beat.